Hello everybody, Jardis here, and in today's video I'm going to be doing an update to a previous build I did for a single attunement elementalist build, this one focusing on air. Now for those of you who have been following my channel, know that I have a really difficult time when it comes to rotation while playing an elementalist, which is why I came up with a small series that focused on making elementalist builds that focus solely on a single attunement, be it fire, water, air, or earth. This one is on air, and because of the recent changes made to the game, as well as nerfs and buffs that they've done to gear and runes and whatnot, I decided it was time to do an update, if you will. Now to start off, what I'm going to show you is the gear. We are using Berserker stats for the primary gear, with superior rune of Infiltration for the rune. The reason being is because we will be wanting that precision for a trait that I will be showing later on. For a cheaper alternative, you could go with the Z set for the armor. We are using Berserker Daggers for both the main hand and the offhand for the first set, as well as a Berserker Scepter for the main hand in the second set in case we want to do a little bit of ranged attack. We will be using superior sigils of force and air, as well as sigil of rage, just for some actual quickness if we decide to do the ranged option. Now for the trinkets, we will actually be using the Knight stats, which is power, precision, and toughness, mainly to increase our survivability with the toughness, but to get ourselves some extra precision to go along with the trait that I'm going to suggest later. Okay, now for the build, we will be going air, water, tempest. We will start with air. This is the trait I was mentioning. We will gain ferocity based on our precision. This is pretty much what we're going to be using primarily as our damage increase, because the more percentage we have for our perception, the more ferocity we get. We will also be using Raging Storm. Critical striking a foe grants fury. Gain ferocity while under the effects of fury, which basically gives us even more ferocity so we can deal more damage. As well as refresh air. Recharge air attunements on a critical strike. Gain a ferocity boost when attuning to air. We will be staying in the air attunement, but it's basically the extra, critical hit recharging the air attunements, which is what we will be needing because we will be using the overload for quite a while. Now we're going to water. We will be taking the precision shards. Vulnerability you inflict has increased duration. Deal increased strike damage to vulnerable foes. Dealing damage bonus is doubled while attuned to water. Now since we will not be attuning to water, we will be wanting that extra vulnerability effect, because that will be the primary condition that we will be inflicting on our foes in this build, is vulnerability and weakness. We will be taking flow like water. Deal increased strike damage, which is further increased while your health is above the threshold. Blocking or evading an attack heals you. Basically, we're taking this one to use the evading skill in order to give us some extra survivability. And we will be using Soothing Power. Gain Vitality. Soothing Mist is more effective. Now, Soothing Mist is a water trait that while we're in water, we will be recovering our allies as well as our own health. But we can negate that because, again, we're not attuning to water, but we will be wanting to gain the Vitality for extra survivability. Now, in Tempest, we will be using Unstable Conduits. Overloads grant an aura based on your attunement. Well, since we are staying with air, we will be getting the Shocking Aura to stun nearby foes attacking with an electric shock. Only once per 2 seconds for each attacker. We will be taking Invigorating Torrents. Auras you grant also gain regeneration and vigor. Basically, whenever we complete an overload, for example, our Shocking Aura, we gain an aura. And while our aura is active, we will be gaining vigor and regen. Again, another survivability trait. And then finally, Transcendent Tempest. Time to attain singularity is reduced upon completing a successful overload gain increased damage. Basically what this is that this gives us a damage buff every time we finish our overload. Now for the skills, we will be taking Glyph of Elemental Harmony to heal ourselves and gain a boon based on our attunement, which in this case would be Swiftness. We will be using the Signet of Earth to improve our toughness, but also give us the ability to immobilize and bleed our foes if we need to. We will be taking Glyph of Storms to create a lightning storm on the targeted area. This we will be using quite often because this also deals vulnerability, and as I stated earlier, our vulnerability will be the primary condition we will be dealing. We will be using Glyph of Lesser Elementals and Glyph of Elementals mainly to give us support for our DPS. Now to show you how this build works, I am currently in Verdant Brink, which is part of the Heart of Thorns expansion, just east of the Shipwreck Peak waypoint down here in the Creeping Crevasse, and I am going to go after this hero point to show you how this build works, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here, and before we start, we're going to go ahead and summon our elementals to make sure that we have maximum damage potential, and we're going to go ahead and inspect this. Now there is no real rotation, but I like to start with the lightning to get our opponent, then updraft and knock them back. Dash forward and then use the overload while they're prone. Give us some time to get it completed. Storm, and as you can see, he's up to 25 vulnerability, and those were really the only attacks I did. Now this isn't the greatest build that there is for an Elementalist, but it is one I thoroughly enjoy, and I hope you do as well. So feel free to share this information with anybody else who would like to make a single attunement build. And also, before I forget, something I neglected to mention. The relic we will be using is Relic of Atrocity. Gain 3% condition duration for 8 seconds when inflicting weakness or vulnerability to a foe to a stack of 5. Because we are dealing weakness and invulnerability, this relic will trigger multiple times. I do apologize for neglecting to mention that. Anyway, I do apologize, and I will see you again in the next video. So happy gaming!